DDoS attacks are among the top 3 cyber threats that Belgian organizations must face. Your website, your applications can become unavailable. And in other words, you could lose business. In this video, I will be joined by Kevin Holvoet from the Center for Cybersecurity Belgium, and together we will walk you through the kind of support that any organization in Belgium can expect from the CCB. Let's find out. This content is brought to you by the Center for Cybersecurity Belgium. If you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the CCB Connect and Share Cyber Tips webinar. My name is Clara Grillet, and I'm an analyst at the Center for Cybersecurity Belgium. I hope everyone had a great summer and is ready as much as you can be for the great big September rush. The topic of today is DDoS. DDoS attacks, DDoS, distributed denial of service, however you want to call it. Just last week, we had some media that were reporting on a very large DDoS attack that actually peaked at 11.5 terabits per second. To give you some context, this is the largest volumetric DDoS attack ever recorded. So DDoS are very much a kind of threat that you might want to put onto your threat landscape whenever you're building it. However, there are some good news. The first one is, if you are prepared, the impact of the DDoS attack can be rather low. And the second good news, that is only if you are in Belgium, the CCB is there to assist all of you. So as you know by now, we have with the cyber tips, you can ask your questions. They will be answered live by our guest expert towards the end of today's session. So to explain today exactly what's happening with DDoS and how the CCB is there to assist you, who better than the amazing Kevin Holvoet? So Kevin leads the Threat Research Center at the CCB, and his team has been doing a lot of research on DDoS. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you very much, Clara. I'm very happy to be here today.
Thank you for carving out a lot of time in your busy schedule. Your team, the Threat Research Center, has been doing quite a bit of work on DDoS. Can you give us some information about what DDoS looks like in Belgium?
Definitely. DDoSes in general are often claimed, but there's also some unclaimed DDoS attacks in there. Now, of course, if we talk about the claimed DDoS attacks, these are the attacks that in many cases come from hacktivist groups, talking about no name 05716, but many other groups that are also targeting European sites, European companies and governments. Now, the CCB these days has procedures in place where whenever we see a claimed DDoS targeting a Belgian entity, whenever we observe that somewhere on dark web or in a Telegram channel or anywhere else, we have different methods to do this. We will start this process and we will actually start to, well, inform people, inform victims, and so on. Now, if you look at the chart here on the slide, looking at 2023, 2024, 2025, you can see a big increase between 2023 and 2024. And as you look at the first 2 quarters for 2025, yeah, we're kind of going into the same direction as 2024. Now, even in these numbers, we're looking at what we call DDoS incidents, DDoS campaigns. So, for example, there was a big campaign from NoName 057 that targeted over 230 different organizations over a 2-week time span in April this year. So this is not in the numbers, this is just in the numbers at like 1 per day. So you can see these numbers are rather big. We also receive more and more, and I think it has to do with the NIS2 directive, we receive more and more notifications of people being under DDoS attacks, some of them needing help, some of them being okay with that. Now, there's also a very big difference between layer 3 and layer 7 application level DDoS attacks, where the layer 3 is, of course, volumetric. As you said before, the 11.5 terabits per second, that's just huge. I mean, nobody can handle that on their own network. You need extra help from outside and from vendors, from other sides of vendors like content delivery networks. But there's also layer 7 attacks. And in some cases, your regular standard anti-DDoS systems don't even detect these very well. They are just trying to get into your system, trying to request dynamic pages, trying to make sure that, if they search on your website, they do it always differently. So it always goes to your database and it just takes resources from your web servers, your databases, your network, and so on. So there's different kinds of attacks, different ways of reacting to it.
So to actually jump back on this, so you're saying you have two different kinds of attacks. There seems to be increasingly more powerful that are finding ways to attack your database. So very blunt question there, what kind of protections do we have in place? Are the current protections that exist strong enough to withstand this kind of attacks, or basically are our websites doomed?
Our websites are definitely not doomed. As long as you have good logging and you know what kind of attack is going against your environment, you're able to adapt, right? You're able to change your web server configuration, maybe have an application firewall or something that holds off all of these very specific requests from certain IPs, from certain malicious infrastructure. You can fend it off with firewalls. You also have anti-DDoS protection for the more volumetric attacks. And of course, on top of that, you have a couple of vendors out there with huge content delivery networks or similar types of networks that can help you withstand the huge volumetric attacks on top of the regular or smaller layer 7 attacks, which they can also help you with. So it's definitely a layered defense. It's not just, hey, I have a bigger web server with more resources. I mean, you can put as many resources as you want on your web server. They will find a way to deplete those resources. So that doesn't matter. You need a layered defense with a good web server that can withstand something, with a good network, with a good firewall, anti-DDoS protection in your own data center. And of course, you also need help from your ISP or a hosting provider. And on top of that, from content delivery networks or other external anti-DDoS providers that help you with the huge, large bandwidth that you might get in against your environment.
Okay, so there are different things that can be done. I also mentioned something that really piqued my interest. You started by talking about procedures and that there are procedures in place for DDoS attack. What does that look like in practice?
Well, if you look at our internal procedures, as I said, we do monitor a lot of things online, a lot of things on the dark web and regular Telegram channels or other things to find out and to identify if somebody is targeting one of our organizations in Belgium. Now, once they do, or on the other hand, if somebody tells us through a notification that they are under attack, we will try to identify what type of attack is it. If we know for some hacktivist groups, we already have quite some intel on how they work, what type of attack they do, and so on, we will start a procedure where we will look up the contact details of the organizations that are being targeted. We will send them by mail a report and an IOC package, an indicator of compromise package of stuff that we know is being used for the usual DDoS attacks. So if you block those on your firewall or your anti-DDoS systems or wherever you have something, that will definitely already help a lot against the attack. Now, on top of that, we also try to call companies if we have the details, if we can get those details. And for this, of course, to give you that information, to send this information as fast as possible, to give you a call as fast as possible, we need those contact details. And for that, I think you better organize or better register organization on Safe on Web at work.
All right. Just one thing that I was just wondering here is I know that back then when we had NIS1, the kind of support we could expect was typically for critical infrastructure. But now I'm just wondering with NIS2, we have a lot more companies in scope. This kind of support that you're giving, is that only for those that are in NIS2? Within the scope of NIS2, is it only for the ones who are registered on Safe on Web at work? What is the overall scope of that support?
Well, I have good news here. I'm happy to say that we try to give this kind of support for in Belgium. Any international board organization that has a location in Belgium, an office in Belgium, we try to support everybody. Of course, we need to work with priorities. If a bunch of NIS2 critical infrastructure companies or organizations are being targeted, we'll focus on them first. It's also the easiest because we have their contact details, we are with them, so it's easier to give them that kind of information. If you have registered even as a regular organization on Safe on Web at Work, then we can also easily contact you and give you the report that has information on how to react to this kind of DDoS attack, and the IOC package, the CTI package, that will also help you on a technical level. We can also do this very fast. Now, the worst thing is when there is an organization that is targeted, and the only thing we can do is try to hunt for, contact details on their website, try to call the secretary office, which has like the main number of the company. It's even worse if it's in the weekend because half of the companies are then closed. So it's very, if an organization is not registered in Safe on Web at Work or in any other of our systems, like NIS2 entities. So if you are a non-NIS2 entity and you want to be contacted, you want us to reach out in case of an attack, please register, because otherwise it can take a couple of hours before we can actually contact you. And then, the attack is already over, right?
Yeah. So you mentioned it's usually bad if we have the phone number of bad. It's not ideal if we have the phone number of the secretary. Who would be the best people then to put in your registration for NIS2? Is there any kind of specific profile that you want to be contacting first?
Sure that you add a technical person. I'm not saying that you cannot add a manager there, but at least with some technical background. Let's say, for example, a CISO who has an IT background, or the IT manager who has some kind of technical background, because we will call you, we will give you that report, we will give you some information. And we've encountered so many times that we called, and we're dealing with the boss of the company who doesn't know anything about IT. We're dealing with, the legal person who just like, hey, we made a NIS2 notification, we're good now, but he does not have a clue where to go, how to contact his own IT, who is the right person for that internally. So please, if you register, ask a person also, or at least somebody with the capabilities to escalate very quickly internally.
All right, thank you, Kevin. I think the message is very clear. Register now. Another thing that I'm sort of thinking of is, okay, let's imagine I'm currently under DDoS. You're contacting me. You said that you would be giving a CTI package and a report, right? I see you
Yes.
nodding yes. So okay, imagine I received a CTI package. Then what's the next step? What should I do?
Well, the first thing with that CTI package, it is mostly IP addresses that we know have been used in previous DDoS attacks. You put that stuff, those IPs, into your firewall. You put it in your system. If you have an external provider, add it in that system too. In this way, you will protect against at least the known malicious things, right? Those infrastructures from bad actors, they change, their botnet changes, other things change, we know that. But at least a big part of it will be blocked by your firewall or whatever you're using or to fend off this DDoS attack. On top of that, of course, you can use MISP and you can connect to our MISP, a malware information sharing platform. And with this, if you have onboarded and you have connected with our MISP, you will get these CTI packages automatically through the system. So even if you have your own server and you integrate to your security tools, it can go fully automatic, where we send an update of a CTI package, of a DDoS or anti-DDoS event. You automatically push it into your systems, and you're basically already protected almost before the attack starts. So try to do this, try to onboard, send us an email at info@ccb. You want to connect to our MISP server, and then you can onboard.
So that MISP sound really good. I'm not sure how many in this current webinar have already connected on MISP or know exactly what MISP is. So Kevin, in 2 minutes, what is MISP and how do I connect?
MISP is the malware platform. I think as Belgians, we can be proud. It was developed by our own military in the past, about 13, 14 years ago. And then it was open sourced by the military and actually went to our friends in Luxembourg, an organization called Circle, another national CSIRT. They took up the project. They have been maintaining that project since then. And whoever wants to add some code, it's an open source project, so everybody can actually add some code to it. Now, as the name says, the malware information sharing platform, it was intended to share solely malware. But nowadays, it is a full threat intelligence platform focused on the tactical level with context about actors, about what type of attack is going on, or about the malware or anything like that. Now, if you want to connect, as I said, send us a mail at info@ccb.belgium.be. It is an onboarding process, so it's not done in 5 minutes. So please prepare yourself and do it before any attack comes in. And this is not even only for DDoS attacks. We send information for a lot of different things. If you want to also know more, you can see the link on the slide for the entire project, and you can easily download a already created virtual machine or whatever to put into your environment and to start testing with it.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. It was almost 2 minutes. Perfect. Perfect timing. I also have a quick question there. So at the very start, you did talk about logging and the importance of logging. On the slide, it also mentioned, please share your logs. I'm just sort of wondering, logs can be really heavy files. So you recommend to email it? Is there, do we have a system that we can refer to in order to be able to share logs correctly? Is there a specific format that you want? What kind of sharing are you interested in?
We're using multiple sharing systems. We do have our own. I will not mention it here because who knows? Maybe it will be under the next DDoS attack. So we want to avoid that as much as possible. But we've received files through sharing platforms of our constituents. They send it in different formats. The initial step is send us an email saying that you have or you had the DDoS attack. If you were, of course, contacted by us, you will also receive another request to share your logs a couple of days after the DDoS attack, because it's with those logs that we can extend our knowledge about the that are being sent to, or how our companies are being targeted, what they're doing, what kind of infrastructure is being used, and what kind of TTPs, tactics, techniques, and procedures are being used in those attacks. With this, if we get these logs, if we analyze them, we will of course change and API package, but at the same time, we will also adapt our reports that we send to you for specific actors or for specific types of DDoS attacks. So you can help yourself with that.
All right, all clear. Kevin, I have one last question for you today, because I really want to make enough time for people for you to pick up, the most upvoted questions. My question is very simple. Do you have any tips on how we can prepare against a DDoS attack?
It's easy. As always in security, you start with knowing yourself, right? Part of the cyber fundamentals that we did, that CCB developed, is also talking about preparing yourself and knowing yourself. What's in your network? Know what's important. What are your crown jewels? I've heard of companies that they said, well, our website is being targeted, but the rest of our infrastructure is okay. We will not shift all of the protections and all of our resources to fending off that DDoS attack. We actually don't really care. Well, that's up to you. I mean, if you fine for me, right? Just think about how your customers will look at that. But for some companies, it's okay like this, right? Just notice. Those companies have prepared. They have done a tabletop exercise. They have created a incident response playbook and they tested it, right? They tried to execute it, even if it's on tabletop with your management. At least you know what kind of decisions can I take? Who will make what decision? What are our crown jewels? What is really important to our infrastructure? What should be better protected, maybe with a DDoS solution or an extra DDoS solution, right? Looking at our layer defense, know what you really want to protect. And on top of that, if you know that you will receive a CTI package with mostly IPs and stuff like that, start to think about how you will add those into your system. Do you still need automation to create it or to add it, or to add thousands and thousands of IPs into your firewall? Or will a couple of firewall or network people add them manually into your system? You want to avoid that, or you'll be busy for a couple of days. Things like that. Prepare as much as possible. Register on Save on Web at Work. Get an anti-DDoS protection. Start talking to a couple of different vendors. Think about that layer defense. Build your incident response playbook and test it beforehand. All right.
All right, thank you,
Kevin. You can do, and we have a guide for that. Basically, it's on the slide here. We have a good guide that can help you going into the right direction for DDoS attacks specifically.
Thanks, Kevin. I think it's definitely a good resource to check out. I'm bearing in mind the time, so I know that we are now coming towards the end of today's webinar. And to let Kevin catch his breath, I have a couple of announcements to make before he gets to pick out the questions. The first thing that you need to know is that there will be more webinars happening very soon. We have our traditional QCTR that is coming up on the 16th of October. This time we're going to be looking at the threat landscape of Belgium for the past quarter. And you will also get to hear some really interesting research. We have some really cool guests who are going to be coming up on that day. Then the day after, if you are a NIST entity, or if you have questions on the cyber fundamentals, you will have a unique chance to ask your questions directly to our experts. And that is going to be taking place on the 17th of October. So please do mark your agenda. And lastly, yours truly will come back for the next Cyber Tips webinar, and that will take place on the 25th of November. Just so you know, the topic is not decided yet. So make sure to fill the survey at the end of today's session. We're going to pick a popular topic from that list. And if you're really interested in a very particular topic, you can put it in, caps lock, which is the version, the unique version of screaming. Please take that one. We'll pay extra attention to it. The second announcement that we have is that the CCB is hiring. We have a couple of positions that are open. So if you are interested in joining our mission, please feel free to apply. But if you also know other people who would be good in those kinds of positions, feel free to also share that information with them. I think it's a great place to be working at, and we have a really cool mission to be working for. Now, I think, Kevin, you've been able to take a look at some of the questions. So take it away, Kevin. What is your first question?
Well, I'll start with this one here. The recent record-breaking DDoS attack that Cloudflare mitigated, the 1.5 terabits, shows attackers scaling to unprecedented levels. Do you think we're reaching the limit of what current mitigation strategies can handle, or should we expect even larger attacks in the near future? To answer, I think, as we've seen in the last 15, 20 years and even longer, security has always been a cat and mouse game, right? It's always we catch up to what they do, they go bigger, we catch up, they go bigger, we catch up. So in the end, I'm pretty sure that we will see even larger attacks, volumetric larger attacks in the future. We will see more complicated or more complex layer 7 DDoS attacks against your application and to just deplete all of the resources of your servers themselves and not particularly the network. So yes, we will see increases. That's why we try to constantly find out what is the new development, what are the new things that we're doing, how can we mitigate against that. And with that, we're trying to update our reports. For this, again, it is very important that you notify us about any kind of attack, not only DDoS attacks, but notify us about any type of attacks to our notification form on our website. And with that, we extend our intel with the community. So I hope that answers your question there.
All right, thank you, Kevin. I see we have a couple of other questions that were pretty good. I'm not sure if you would like to select them or do I select them myself? I feel
If
like
you want, you can select them yourself.
All right. So because I mentioned a little bit earlier that your team has been doing quite a bit of research on DDoS, one of the questions from Mark Lumpo says, have you done any research into what resources are used or abused in layer 7 DDoS attacks against organizations? For instance, coming from anonymizing VPN providers, gaming organizations, providers of VPSs, anything. Do you have any insight on that?
Definitely. Well, Mark, you're spot on. We indeed did some investigation on that. And as you say, multiple systems are being used to do this. VPNs, other systems, VPSs, random servers, and so on are being used to do these layer 7 DDoS attacks. What we've seen in many cases is that the DDoS, the layer 7 attacks, are using some kind of a headless browser system where they just target your website on specific resources. So what we think is that they're doing reconnaissance on your website to see, what is the most impactful dynamic post or get request on your website, Think about a search bar that you have, or some website that, some part of your website that loads a lot of information from the database. Things like that. What they will do is they will send specific requests, and also every time different requests, if they're really good, to deplete your resources. Because of course, detect different requests. If you have a caching mechanism in place, even for the dynamic requests, if you do a different one every time, it will not be cached. It will be harder to detect and to actually do something against that. With this, what we've seen is that the best thing you can do is check out which systems are requests, which IP addresses are doing these type of requests, and then blocking them on network level. We also, from the logs that we receive from constituents, from targeted organizations, we also have a list of those, well, I would say, known malicious networks, known malicious providers, VPN providers, and that we know are used by bad actors, by malicious actors, by hacktivists, and we then send those in that CTI package to our constituents so they can block those.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. I have another one that I think could be really interesting for not just schools, but for many organizations here. And that is a question from Wim van den Berg. How to protect yourselves being a school with a small and limited budget?
That is actually a very good question. Budget is not only for schools, but it's for many, many different smaller companies an issue, especially want to, go to big vendors or so on, or have this big DDoS protection in place. I would recommend you to Proximus, Telenet, VU, other ISPs. They do have DDoS protections in place on their data centers. They do have the possibility to give you that service at I would say, a lower cost. It's definitely not free, but a lower cost than many of the external vendors. And the interesting thing, on top of, your own network, they protect your IP, they protect your network specifically. So that would be the first step. Go to your ISP that has or looks at your bandwidth, that supports you with your internet connection. And maybe that's just a simple idea. You can putting your website, as that is the most targeted thing, on a different network than your school network. Just a little enhancement, maybe adding that into a DDoS protected data center somewhere and not in a server on your school grounds. Because we've seen that a couple of times in COVID times when people, students didn't want to follow classes online. They just used some kind of stress tester online that took down the entire network at schools because they only had like 100 megabit, 500 megabit line, which is of course very small, very easy to saturate. So go there and start with knowing yourself and go to your eyes.
I would also probably recommend to try to look at the cyber fundamentals. You have different levels, and that it can sort of help you to decide which are the kinds of controls you might want to prioritize. And you can also find the link on the CCB's website. I'm also realizing we're just 1 minute away, so unfortunately, we really are getting toward the end of today's webinar. So first of all, a huge thank you to our expert, Kevin Holvoet, for his insights. And thank you to all of you for watching and for asking questions. Sorry for the ones we could not answer this time, but I hope that this was still, relevant for you and got some answers that were really important to you. So what it leaves me to do is just to say, see you next time. We'll meet again on the 25th of November for the next Cyber Tips webinar. Bye, everyone.
Goodbye. Thank you very much.